Good afternoon, good morning. As you are entering into the Zoom room, I just want to welcome everyone to today's Women in Wood webinar, number 2 of our series. Number 3 happening next week. Number 1 happened last week. If you missed it, it'll be on our YouTube channel soon. Um, but I'm going to give a minute or two to just let people enter. We have lots of people coming in before I get started. Thank you for joining, whether you're joining from, Canada or beyond. We are happy to have you here. We have some great speakers that are going to share some of their insights today, actually from across Canada. And so it's great to get some diverse representation in part of our panel today. We'll give it another few seconds before I get started. My name is Jess Kaknevicius. I am the co-founder of Women in Wood, along with Lacey Rose, who you will see at next week's webinar. She'll be leading a great panel discussion with a few other speakers. I'm also the CEO at Forest Canada, and we're here to share with you some insights of some amazing women in wood who are joining us to share their stories, their career paths, and hopefully hearing from you in terms of potential questions that you might have for how they got to where they are and where they're headed next. Before we get started, I just wanted to kind of go through a bit of a code of our conduct. Women in Wood, we're trying to create a respectful place and welcoming place where people can share their stories. And those who join our events, we hope you'll enjoy hearing from these lovely women. But please treat the speakers with respect. Don't share comments that are or questions that are harassing or discriminatory or harmful. Respect that attendees may have different backgrounds, experiences, and identities. Keep questions focused on the topic. We would appreciate if you don't record or redistribute this. As I mentioned, it will be recorded and shared on our YouTube channels, so you can feel free to share once we've done that. And just to, follow along and be respectful. These women have dedicated their time today to sharing their story, and so we're hoping that you'll enjoy part of that. A few housekeeping items before I get to some introductions. As you probably already figured out, your attendees, so you'll only be seeing the moderators and the panelists today. If you have any questions or comments, you can put them in the Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom app. You can find it by clicking on Q&A and you can put them in there, and we'll use that to drive some of the conversation today. Closed captioning is available. Use the toggle at the bottom of the Zoom if you want to access that. All webinars are being recorded and will be edited and put on Zoom within a few weeks of the final webinar, so stay tuned for that in terms of the recording, as well as a survey, just getting some feedback from you on today's webinar as well as previous ones. So hopefully you'll be able to share some insights and some feedback that will help us build some strong programming in the future. I wanted to introduce you to who Women in Wood is. We are not an organization, we are an informal network that brings women together who work in, with, and for the woods across Canada and beyond. We even have women from different countries as part of our network. It provides a network that gives women and those who identify as women a platform to meet others in the field, build mentorship opportunities, ask questions about their careers, and learn about advancement opportunities. You might not know, but Women in Wood is really a Facebook group. We started it about 10 years ago. And then this past year, actually in 2025, we just celebrated 10 years of Women in Wood. But it started as a Facebook group, just bringing women together in the sector, giving them a platform and an opportunity to ask those critical questions and share comments and feedback. This past fall, we celebrated 10 years of Women in Wood in particular at an event that we hosted in Ontario with support from the Ministry of Natural Resources, where we brought together over 120 women in the sector and really celebrated and shared stories and learned skills and, practiced chainsaws, but really had an opportunity to connect with other women. We're also grateful for all the volunteers and people that are engaged in Women in Wood events across the country, and we hope to continue to celebrate this network and all the work it has done to bring women together. And so with that, I'm going to get started on today's speakers. And so I'm excited to welcome our speakers for today. We have 4 women from across the country. Quickly, Kathryn Wagner, Sophia Xhekaj, Donna Lacey, and Kathryn Langille. I'd love to introduce Kathryn Wagner, who's going to kick off our session today. Kathryn Wagner is the Executive Director for Inside Education, based in Calgary on Treaty 7 territory. She has a BSc and a B.Ed from the University of Alberta and 20 years of experience working in environmental education and the social profit sector. Kathryn and the team at Inside Education are dedicated to supporting teachers, inspiring students, and creating a province of informed stewards of the environment and natural resources. Kicking over to you, Kathryn.
Awesome. I'll see if I can share my screen here. And voila, is that coming up okay?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Well, hello everybody, and thanks so much for having me, and thanks to all of you who've tuned in. I want to get this out of the way first. I don't work in forestry, and I don't have a forestry degree. So I guess I'm in the wrong webinar, Jess. I'm not sure quite why. No, I'm kidding. I guess I'd call my career forestry adjacent. So as Jess mentioned, Inside Education does forest education here in Alberta. So my street cred in the sector really comes from teaching and learning about forests and forestry. My work has brought me so many amazing opportunities to deepen my knowledge and experience forestry in action. I've had the opportunity to see active harvest sites. I've participated in environmental monitoring. I've attended numerous research symposiums on forest, created education field sites, informed curriculum, and toured everything from sawmills, pulp mills, LVL mills, and met with hundreds of different forestry experts. But I think my most important street cred in forestry comes from spending my university days drinking beer with the fine folks in the Faculty of Forestry at the U of A. Chose to hang out there. They were always having a lot more fun than my peers in science or education. So that's kind of where my forestry background comes from. And as Jess said, my career path is pretty straightforward too. I did a Bachelor of Science followed by a Bachelor after degree in education, and did a little bit of high school teaching, and then really have spent my last 20 years with the same nonprofit organization, kind of working my way up and experiencing all the things that working in nonprofit comes with. So that said, when I thought about what to share with this group, it came down to the things that I put on the slide here. So this is going to sound super cheesy, but really none of this, my whole career, really wouldn't have happened if it didn't truly start with caring about the type of work we do, which I think is really important in a nonprofit, and also really caring about the people I get to work with. I truly do love leading groups through the woods. I get really excited when I see concepts click, or help someone see things differently, or ask big questions about what we're seeing on the landscape. So it really just started with finding my niche and finding my people, and really just having a lot of joy in doing all of that. I was also really lucky to have a great mentor. So that's the picture at the bottom there, the Dangerous Duo. Note that's a AI generated thing. We didn't actually break into Parliament. So I was very fortunate. We worked together the whole time at Inside Education. He recently retired. But one of the things he would say to me throughout my career here is fake it till you make it. And I kind of love that. I really don't have formal training to run a nonprofit, but he gave me so many opportunities to meet with people, be in the right places, and kind of practice being a senior leader before I really even was one at Inside Education. So I would call that mentorship really pivotal in kind of my career transformation here. I also put a picture of my kids on the slide when they were little. They're 12 and 16 now. And unlike many women, my career trajectory was not impacted really by the time I took off work when they were little. I included them here because I do think that both my parental leaves were really pivotal because they gave me tremendous perspective. It was a time that I was able to step back, take a year, and really evaluate what I was doing, how much I wanted to do it, and really understand why the work actually mattered. I find it's really easy to get sucked into the day-to-day of a job and forget why you're actually doing it. thinking about this, I honestly wish everyone could take a sabbatical like every 5 years to gain this kind of perspective, because I truly think it makes you a better person and a better employee. Um, uh, yeah, better at the job you're doing. So none of this is to say that it wasn't without challenges. So my job uh, was to lead or is to lead a team of educators, and I was fully in this during the pandemic. So one of the big, kind of challenges that I faced were schools weren't fun places, priorities and strategies were changing constantly. Everyone, as you know, was coping very differently with that situation. Um, and other than trying to keep a good attitude through the whole thing, I had no idea the best path forward and how to kind of lead this team through it, the whole kind of fake it till you make it kind of thing. But the team and the organization were really resilient and we made it. So I think another key point in kind of thinking about my career is having these big, messy problems to tackle can be another one of those really important perspective building times. All you can do is get through it at the time sometimes, but I would encourage everyone to, if those moments happen, to take the time and make sure you reflect on it when it's done so that you can apply that moving forward. The last things on the slide there are pretty obvious. I make sure to take time for professional development. I join some networks and continue to learn all the time. And it's always nice to get some pats on the back for a job well done. So I've been recognized for some of my work, and that's always those uplifting moments. But really, to sum it up, is the photo at the bottom there. At the end of the day, I still have way too much fun on a school bus with high school kids heading out to the forest, and really, truly do love what I do. So that's me, and kind of a quick synopsis of my career path here at Inside Education.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kathryn. I think that I have a lot of similarities in terms of our career paths, and we're working at nonprofits, not necessarily realizing we were going to end up in forestry. Finding your career, I think, is a really interesting one. And of course, fake it till you make it. And so I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But thanks, Kathryn. Now we're going to head over to Sophia. So Sophia Xhekaj is 26 years old and has worked as a wildland firefighter for the past 7 years. She currently works with Parks Canada as a crew leader. She finds her job most fulfilling when she can support others to step into challenges they never thought they could handle. So welcome, Sophia, and would love to hear more about your path.
Hello, everyone. I'll just see if I can share my screen. All right, is that full screen for everyone?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, sweet. So hello, everyone. My name is Sophia Xhekaj. Um, I've been in wildfire for 7 years now. Um, I started out my career in structural firefighting and in school for structural. The teachers actually don't recommend, well, in my school, I went to Lambton College in Sarnia, Ontario, and they actually didn't recommend you do wildfire just because they kept saying, you'll get stuck. And so I was really confused by this. And so I just decided to do landscaping for a while. And one of my friends was he was doing wildfire and we were about to hit COVID. And he was like, you should really do wildfire. You should really try it. It would be a good way to build your resume. And I was like, you know what? I enjoy working outdoors and I enjoyed physical work. And I was like, I'm going to give it a shot. So I applied and then I found out what getting stuck meant. You just fall in love with the career. So then from there, so I started with Manitoba Wildfire. I worked there for 3.5 years. And then I wanted something more opportunity. So I applied for Parks Canada at Wood Buffalo National Park in the Northwest Territories. And I started out there as a crew member. And then my second year, I applied as a crew leader and I got that position. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I loved mentoring people in the job and just showing people how capable they were of doing the job. As well as I love wildfire because I think it's gives you very cool opportunities. Like so many times with my crew this past summer and last year, we got the opportunity to go to Jasper National Park, and just being in those remote areas, we would always sit back and think like, how cool is this? Like how many people actually get to be where we are and like go to the places we get to go. Also, I think wildfire is super cool because it brings the coolest people together. Like when I started with Manitoba Wildfire, I was actually working with someone who's now a conductor in New York City and was going to Juilliard, so he just did it part time. And as well as just like the most different, it brings a bunch of different people together. Another thing I loved about it and that I learned is that it really helps you be intuitive with yourself. Like the seasons are getting longer, hotter, and more challenging, which just really makes you check in with yourself because it is a physically hard job, but as well, it is mentally challenging. So it really just makes you check in with yourself and realize like if you're doing okay, if you're getting proper sleep, if you're having the proper nutrition, which is super important. And then um, it has also like wildfires becoming like a year long position instead of more of seasonal couple months like during the short term period, which is great because that means wildfire's not going anywhere and just the importance of it is getting more important. And wildfire as well is um, become the training for wildfire is becoming more important as well as mental health check-ins on employees, which is very important because it makes it sustainable long term, which is awesome. Yeah, and that's me.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sophia. I think I saw some similarities with Kathryn where it's kind of like finding your crew, finding some people that you connect with that often kind of keeps you in the sector. I think the term of getting stuck, I think sometimes people see it as a negative, but I think you really showed that maybe it's not necessarily a negative. Getting stuck can have some positiveness to it if you find out it's your passion. And so thanks for sharing
Yeah.
that. Awesome. Well, now we're going to kick it over to Donna Lacey, who will be our next speaker. We're going to be coming up to Q&A soon, so just a reminder, you can throw your questions in the function at the bottom of Zoom. Donna Lacey is a Fleming Forestry Technician grad and began her career working as a forestry technician for Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. She is now the manager of forestry and lands at FSVCA and manages all authority-owned properties and facilities. She enjoys working with landowners to manage their forests, listening to their histories and visions for the future. Among many other certifications, Donna is a certified tree marker, associate professional forester, pesticide exterminator, chainsaw operator, and butternut health assessor. Donna lives in Walkerton, Ontario with her husband and now an empty nest. And so, Donna, take it away.
Thanks, Jess. So yeah, I was born and raised in Bruce County. I grew up on a farm, no brothers. My poor dad, I kept hearing that, the poor guy. I love being outside. No hunters in the family, so we never got into that kind of stuff, but spent a lot of time back in the bush, doing firewood or just cleaning things up a little bit, which maybe might have been a little too clean. You learn later in life. I love working in the shop on mechanical repairs. I was really, really shy till I landed a waitressing job and was forced to actually deal with people. But I'm still an introvert, and this presentation's got to be the hardest one I've ever prepared for. It's the only one I've ever made notes for because I don't know the subject matter. So bear with me. I never really enjoyed or excelled at schoolwork. Never really saw the purpose in doing high school work. I knew where I wanted to go. I knew where I wanted to be in grade 8. I wanted to be a game warden. Really simple. None of that English stuff mattered or any any of those other subjects. But when I landed college, following my high school co-op placement, I really did care. I really did put an effort in, and I thought it was amazing. I went to Sir Sanford Fleming College because it was closer to home than Sioux. I mean, 3 hours sure beat a day-long drive. But the common first semester I thought was just incredible. Exposure to lots of different subjects, and really, in fact, I enrolled for fish and wildlife tech, but got there. I loved the forestry first semester, and I loved earth sciences. So what do? I didn't know I love them both equally. I thought they were both fascinating. I reached out to my co-op supervisor, Jane Thompson at Maitland Valley Conservation Authority, and she gave me some really great advice, probably the most important advice I received in life. Um, do I want to work in the far, far north, or do I want to have a chance at a job here? And which one really, really could I do anywhere? and there's trees almost everywhere. So I owe my entire career to Jane when we speak of mentors. And funny thing is, she's not in forestry. So I graduated in 1993. If people are familiar, the Harris government made a whole bunch of cuts in the mid 90s. That kind of affected me greatly. I think one of the big things for me, a learning moment, was in my forestry class. I was the only girl. There were 5 forestry classes. Some of them had 2 or 3 girls in them, but for some reason, I got to be alone. Um, I couldn't believe it when I first saw what timber cruising was. I I couldn't believe it was actually someone's job. And that's kind of the point of my slide. Like I get to I was until this position anyways. I got paid to go out and find things in nature, record them and measure them, mark trees for removal. I actually got paid to do all that stuff. Can't believe it. I had even enrolled myself in natural resources law again, thinking I wanted to be a game warden, conservation officer here in Ontario. Um, but then I really didn't want to move away. It's a common theme in my life. I'm from Bruce County. I live in Bruce County. Um, so once the Harris cuts went through, I did a bunch of waitressing. I unloaded 80-pound flour bags out of trucks. I painted barns. I sandblasted. I just refused to give up. I was staying here and I was hoping to get a job. And yay, Maitland Valley needed a resource management tech. So they gave me a job. I helped with education, special events, and some forest inventory work there, which landed me a job at a nursery landscape company, which was actually a really great step. Never saw it coming. The importance of learning a non-native species in plants, shrubs, and trees, because the more you learn, the more you can figure out in nature. So all the relationships with that. I also really had to work on my insect and disease issues in the ornamentals, which again carries through into our native stuff. But the education side, it's kind of neat to be on the same call as Kathryn, because man, doing conservation education, taking kids from kindergarten to grade 9 out, whether it was in a stream or in a forest, or it didn't matter which ecosystem we were in, seeing the enthusiasm on their face when they like caught a frog or saw a worm could help me reappreciate some of the things that I kind of forgotten were so important. Then finally, 1998, yes, before Sophia was born, I landed a job at Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. They took me on as a forest tech 6 years after being on contract. I made full time, which gave me actually a decrease in pay because all of a sudden you have to pay into a pension plan. But stayed on. In 2018, my boss retired after being here for closer to 40 years, and I took on the forestry coordinator role in 2018, which put me in charge of everything forests. Um, that we have 21,000 acres of forest here, which I'm really happy to manage alongside 2 just awesome, amazing women of wood, Rita McGee and April McVeigh. We do tree marking, we do logging supervision, tree planting. We act as forest consultants. We're tree salespeople, forest ecosystem inventories, MIF tip planners and approvers, herbicide applicators, and most importantly, we're public representatives for Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. So now in my new job, I picked up a bunch of extra things over and above forestry. So I think 3 campgrounds came under my supervision. Well, I should say I oversee people who manage them. Let's not pretend I'm doing something I'm not. Which brings in a whole different element of public in nature, sort of. I'm also responsible for every other piece of land we own outside of water infrastructure, our authority's fleet and equipment, rental properties, and just love every minute of it. I mean, I did love being outside. That was awesome. Once you hit a certain age and you start moving a little slower, you have to realize maybe moving up and spending a little less time being honest about the efficiencies of being outdoors. Oddly enough, in 2020, I started writing columns for a monthly magazine called The Rural Voice, something I never would have predicted, and my English teachers would be amazed that I can actually write something. I'm pretty shocked at it, but it's really neat because I get to hear other people's love of the forests and their perspectives on the things that I write about. Looking back, the biggest thing I wish someone would have told me when I was younger is how important it is to stretch And I know pretty much everybody younger than me is laughing because it's like it's okay. But if someone would have said how important it is and it wouldn't be not cool to do it, would have been awesome. So I do try to stress that now for everybody that's younger, to take better care of themselves. I've really enjoyed seeing women be more successful in forestry, but I'm really not enjoying the lineups for the bathroom. Never used to be an issue at meetings, but the hardest lesson for me is, and it's one I'm still learning, I don't think I'll ever get it, is that everyone isn't always honest. I have a bad habit of taking people for what they say, and I believe that everyone is genuine. When people are nice to me, I think we're on the same team. I've learned everyone is not truly good. There are some evil people out there. They seem to find me every now and then. So this really comes to play in 2022, became a provincial offenses officer, along with many people in my team, which means we get to enforce our CA Act rules in our parks, including unleashed dogs. Funny thing is, people come from the city and we're doing positive reinforcement, so they get a treat if their dog's on a leash. Um, People from the city, oh yeah, yeah, their dog's on leash, but can I give you my dog license? Like I have their vaccination sheets ready with me. People from our area are like, my dog's fine. They don't need to be on a leash. It's kind of neat the different sides of people. Um, I do sneak outside every chance I get. Maybe it just annoys the people I'm working with, but I have to try. Have to see some trees sometime. I really strongly believe in the values of the Conservation Authority. I'm incredibly proud to be part of this team. Can't believe they've kept me this long. Hoping to retire from here in a few years. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Donna. I truly appreciate that stretching is important. And I do think at some age you decide that sitting is probably a little bit easier. I like that you said that it was about efficiency versus potential injury and recovery time. And so, but I do think you've had an interesting path, and it sounds like there's some alignment with others in terms of passions and what was really driven you. I also love to hear that you were the only woman in your class, and so maybe we'll talk about that a little more. Awesome. Well, last speaker, and then we're going to head to our Q&A. So I'll kick it over to Kathryn Langille. She is the Workforce Development Lead at BC First Nations Forestry Council, supporting young Indigenous professionals through education, mentorship, and career pathways in forestry and land stewardship. With previous roles in Indigenous relations at the Sustainable Forestry Initiative and leadership with the Outland Youth Employment Program, her work is grounded in lived experience in the forest sector with a focus on people-centered systems that honor Indigenous knowledge and community. Take it away, Kathryn.
Thanks, Jess. And it's so nice to hear everyone's story. I haven't officially heard everyone's yet, so it's nice to also sit in as an attendee. But Ani Bojo, my name is Kathryn Langille, and I am from St. River First Nation, which is a couple hours outside Thunder Bay, Ontario, Lake Superior area. But I currently live on the traditional territory of the Songhees and Esquimalt people here in Victoria, British Columbia on Vancouver Island. I'm so grateful, and I just moved here about a year ago in March. So still Ontario is in my heart, but I'm never moving back. Anyways, so yeah, I'm excited to be here. It is shockingly hard to share your entire story in just a few minutes. So I'm just gonna try and give it my best shot. It's funny how hard it is to talk about yourself. Anyways, so my whole career so far has been about building relationships across the forest sector, especially between Indigenous communities, youth, and industry. And I've always found myself in these connector roles where the work is about bringing people together in ways that feel respectful and honest and open. And I really pride myself in being real. I'm not doing a code switching moment where like you pretend to be a certain way. I try to be honest everywhere. My forest sector background started with the Outland Youth Employment Program in Northwestern Ontario. OYIP is a land-based employment and leadership program for Indigenous youth, where Indigenous youth come together from nations across the country to work outdoors, gain experience. We get certifications, we build confidence. I got certified in my chainsaw, forest firefighting, tree planting, thinning, the whole 9 yards, which is pretty crazy for a 16-year-old. But we all do it. And I was directly involved with OYIT for about 8 years. I actually grew from being a youth participant when I was 16 to being a crew leader helping run the camps of over 20 youth. And throughout that, I'm gonna skim over a little bit, but yeah, I also went tree planting, like production planting, and I also got to work as a biologist assistant with Ontario Parks through OYIP. Having that job got me connections everywhere else, which was beautiful. I still love OYIP. I'm gonna do a full circle. So, the OYIP experience honestly shaped me a lot because it taught me that workforce development isn't just about jobs, it's about belonging and it's about cultural safety, it's about identity and making sure that youth feel supported, especially in a forest-based learning environment. So from OYIP, I moved to Indigenous relations work with Sustainable Forestry Initiative, where I spent about 5 years supporting engagement across Canada and the US. And I worked on partnerships with Indigenous organizations, represented SFI at conferences and really big conferences. That was a lot when I was young. I still am young, but like I was like 19 when I at SFI, so that was like a lot to handle. And I supported a lot of youth involvement at SFI also. And then at SFI, I had the privilege and opportunity to also go to Fleming like Donna, but I did environmental science at Fleming. And then I moved to Trent University to complete my degree in Indigenous environmental science with a specialization in Indigenous knowledge. And now I'm with the BC First Nation Forestry Council, where I lead our workforce development and I manage the Indigenous Forestry Scholarship Program, where I work closely with about 26 right now Indigenous post-secondary students alongside industry and government partners to support education and forestry-related work placements. And I'm also leading a nationwide workforce steering committee, which has been a really meaningful space to bring together nations, industry leaders, organizations to help guide the future of forestry workforce development in BC specifically. Previously, I've worked like nationally, but this is my first time working somewhere specific in BC. I think is like a baller in terms of Indigenous involvement. We're a leader in Canada, I would say, and it's been inspiring to learn from this side of the coast. Um, so throughout my entire story, I also have to credit my incredible professional mentors. Throughout my career, I do not come from a forestry family. I didn't even know other people who worked in forestry at all. And now my entire circle is somehow connected to the forest, which is incredible. And I've had my mentor who I met at SFI in 2019. We still talk. Our last conversation was like last week. And he's like a big gun in forestry. So I needed him throughout my career. We just talk about me. I'm shocked he still talks to me. But we have a great relationship, and that has changed my career so much. Anyways, so to wrap up my story, the biggest thing for me is that none of these roles are actually separate. OYIP, SFI, FNFC, all part of the same thread. Like, in fact, this past summer, I got to host a workshop at an OYIP camp representing both SFI and FNFC in Quesnel. So, like, it was such a full circle moment where all of the nonprofit orgs I've worked for are all working together, which is beautiful in this industry. So my entire career has been built around community, trust, and long-term relationship building and making sure Indigenous voices and values are genuinely included, not just as an add-on, but as a foundation, in a way that we should move forward. This path has not always been easy. Sometimes there are very difficult conversations to be had, but I'm still grateful and it's amazing. And I'm gonna end it there because I don't know. I did 5 minutes, okay. Miigwech.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Kathryn. It's fun because I've known you since you were early in your career and to see how far you've come and to also kind of see that full circle moment of you're giving back to those that helped you develop your own career. And so I think that's a really beautiful thing. And I think in our sector, it's a very small world. So things always, people cross paths, you always run into similar people. And so maintaining really positive relationships is always a bonus for that long term. All right. Well, now it's time for our Q&A portion. There's a couple of questions I'm seeing in the Q&A, which is great, so feel free to throw it in there. But I'm going to kick it off asking Kathryn W. A starting question. And so I'd love for you to share a little bit more about one barrier you may have encountered in your career and how you actually managed through it.
Yeah, one barrier. I think maybe the most significant barrier has been like just the steep learning curve that I think I mentioned that like I don't have formal training on how to run a nonprofit or kind of the management or governance side of yeah, actually doing the work that I do now. So there was, I think the barrier would just be the really steep learning curve over the last, I don't know, I started in this role as executive director just under 2 years ago now. So, I mean, I got to witness that along kind of the 20 years I've spent in a nonprofit, but actually being in charge is a whole different game. So I would say that the steep learning curve is the biggest barrier. How I've managed through that is, yeah, it goes back to the people and the mentorship and asking a ton of questions and finding, like, not being scared to admit that I interviewed for this position, I got this position, so like I obviously have some skills, so owning that, but then not being afraid to share what I don't know. And that can be really scary to do when you're in a position of leadership and saying, actually, I don't know. Let's, solve this together. Or who do you know that can help me? Or how do we, work through this? So I've just found some learning opportunities and leaned on my people hard. So.
Yeah, definitely. I could relate to a lot of that. And I think one of my strategies has been developing peer groups or similar connections so you could bounce ideas off each other, especially as you get higher in leadership roles. It becomes more important to find those similar people in similar positions. Awesome. I'm gonna ask Sophia one. I'd love to hear a little bit more, maybe about one of the best days you've ever had at work.
So one of the best days I had at work would probably be in 2023. So I don't know if many of you know, but it was one of the worst wildfire seasons in the Northwest Territories, and especially like in Wood Buffalo National Park and for the town of Fort Smith. And that's not the reason it was the best, but so because it was the worst wildfire season, Parks Canada called up like as much help as we could get. So we were working with crews like from all across Canada. Like we were working with like Banff, Riding Mountain, Waterton, and then we had like some provincial crews come as well. And on one of the last days before the town got evacuated, we were doing like a different fire management strategy of doing a backburn, which was pretty cool because we could use this machine called the Torch, which is essentially like a flamethrower, which was super cool. And while we were doing that, we all took a little break, and there was about like 5 or 6 crews working together, and we were all like standing in a circle, just like chatting. And one of the ladies, like who was our TFLs and our div soup, like looked around and she was like, "This is a pretty crazy moment because out of all the crews, there was more women doing what we were doing than men." And all of us were like, we just felt like super proud, and it was just like a really cool moment that all of us together could share that opportunity. And it felt like pretty empowering being surrounded by like a bunch of women, and we were just doing like such a badass job. So that was pretty cool.
Awesome. I love that. I do think that it's pretty remarkable how many women are growing in the sector in terms of representation. There's still lots of improvement, but I do think those moments where you're just like, oh, there's more. And I think, Donna kind of spoke to that about maybe being one of the only ones early on. And so seeing that grow, I think is really important and probably helps to motivate you to keep going and to inspire other women to potentially consider careers and explore opportunities.
Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Cool. Well, maybe I'm gonna ask Donna a question. I'm curious if you ever had a time where you felt like you wanted to quit, and how did you keep going?
Before this presentation, I was really thinking about calling it quits. Um, no, I'm not the best person to ask that question. I've always been pretty sure of my goals for me. There've been some really not great times here at work, for various reasons, some work related and some just people related. But I just believe in who we are. And I love this team. We've always been a really strong team here. And if I would have remembered to change my slides through my presentation, there would have been shots of my team on there. But it's just, no, I love the people. I love the purpose.
Awesome. Yeah, I think people keep you and people grow you. And so it's great to see that you found your crew. Maybe on that, I know Kathryn, during your presentation, you mentioned the importance of mentorship. And I know that I'm familiar with some of your mentorship opportunities. You mentioned it a little bit. Can you enlighten us a little bit about what mentorship has meant to you and maybe some of the things that you've learned through that process?
Yeah, I love this question and this topic, and I used to like talk about it everywhere. If you Google me, you'll just see mentorship stuff, because it has made such an impact on my life. It is so important. There are so many young folks or so many women who don't have like representation in forestry or the forest sector in general. And representation is so important. The way I see myself, doing something is if I see someone else doing it and it makes it possible. You know what I mean? Like even look at Jess, like it's like, damn, she's now CEO. Like that's crazy. Now it's like we know it's possible. It's not something that's being gate kept. We can talk about it, we can explore, we can ask questions. And even a space like this, I would consider even something like mentorship, where we're creating a space where we can share our stories. That is what mentorship is to me. Um, and it is so important, especially for young people. I know I already said that, but forestry is kind of in a little bit of a crisis, as a bunch of us probably know. That said, we need to train our young folks to be the future leaders, to be the future mentors, and to be the new carriers of wisdom, basically. It's changed my life. Etienne has been a I don't know. I can't even give him enough credit. Like, I can't say enough good things about him or my previous supervisors, Jess included. Denise is here in this call as an attendee. Like, the people who have supported me in figuring out who I am and where I belong in the sector has made a huge, huge difference. And I encourage everyone to sign up as a mentor or look for a mentee or ask someone or go to a conference and be like, hey, do you have any questions? Or I don't know, because sometimes youth are scared to come up to you. But I really encourage these conversations and not gatekeeping and just being open about things because a lot of stuff is gatekept. No one really talks about this stuff very openly. So
Yeah,
that's my
definitely.
like big
I
piece of
think it can
advice.
start as easy as asking someone for a virtual chat or a coffee meetup, and then you never know where it could go from there. It doesn't have to be overwhelming and really run right into, or do you want to be my mentor? But sometimes those informal chats can go a long way. All right, I'm going to open this up for anybody here who might want to respond. But a question from the audience. And so, what do you hope people remember most about the wi impact women are having in the forestry sector right now? Anybody want to take that one? Okay, I want to pick on you. I'm going to pick on Donna. What do you hope?
I hope it doesn't matter. I hope people realize whether you're male or female or other, it doesn't matter. We all know what we know, and we're all very good at it.
Nice simple answer. I love that. Anybody want to add to that?
I'll go back to perspective, and it's a word I use lots in my work, and I just think, um, yeah, women bring different perspective, and I'm really happy to see that those perspectives are now being shared and respected, and I do think they are transforming workplaces for the better.
Yeah, I agree with that. Maybe I could ask Sophia, in terms of your role and how you entered into it, I'm wondering if you have any words of advice that you'd want to share with people that are currently in post-secondary studies.
Yeah, definitely. I think like the main thing is like believing in yourself. Because I know like a lot, like going even like in school, like there was about like 6 women in my program, and just like a lot of the boys being like, oh, don't worry, I can help you with this, or like, oh, we can do this for you. But like it's just you like not only proving them that you can do it, but like proving yourself that you can do it. And I feel like that's like the biggest thing is just like showing up for you. And then if you believe in yourself, like anything is possible. And like my mom's biggest quote is like, if you believe, you can achieve. So like just believing in yourself and just will take you very far, I think.
Awesome. Does anyone else want to add to that words of advice for post-secondary students?
Yes. Also, I always tell when I try to inform people of what opportunities might be available. If you are thinking about something, there is probably something that's already created for you in that thing. So like, I don't know, if you want to do more community involvement, there's like the Roots to Shoots program, or there's a scholarship here, there's a scholarship there. There are so many resources. I don't know about them, and I've been doing this for over 10 years. Of course, a post-secondary student might not know where to look for resources, but I really encourage you to try because there are so many things out there that are designed to help you.
Yeah, definitely. It probably isn't something that they have faced on their own, and there's probably other people that have helped to figure that out. I saw you go off mute, Kathryn.
Yeah, I was just going to add that my piece of advice would be that the the forestry community of professionals and folks working in the space, and I think is fairly small. And so you end up running into people over and over and over again in different places, different contexts. I think that was really clear in Catherine L's presentation too, that yeah, it's really important to curate the people around you and maintain those good relationships, because you never know the next time you'll be in a room with that person, and especially in forestry, it'll for sure happen.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. This is a small world, and you run into each other.
I'm sorry. And then just
Yeah.
tagging on to what both Catherine said was just like, I think another thing is just taking the step, like, because you never know what opportunities will come from you. Just like, even if you're scared, just like taking the leap and just going and doing what you would like to do.
Yeah, definitely. Take a chance. Um,
Yeah.
and I have an interesting question from the audience, which is, and I'm hoping someone might be able to answer this. Were there any "no one warned me about this" moments when it came to being a woman working in the field? No one warned me about this.
I can jump in right away.
Yeah.
It also like there's a little bit of a difference in my positionality. I'm also a young Indigenous person. But being a woman is sort of the same thing. Like no one warned me that people sometimes genuinely don't listen to you the first time. Or sometimes you need a man to repeat what you say for it to be heard, which is like so lame. That is so real. And it happened a lot when I was like 19, 20. Now it's getting less then because people are respecting me more, but it's like so hard to be a young person and have to like earn respect of old white men.
I hear that, Catherine. I think that that can be a really hard one. And I do think there's ways to build allies, other people in your sector, bond and try to find ways to heighten each other's voices. And so making space for people, I think, is really important. And I think as women grow in leadership, it's focusing on how do you create that space for new women that are entering into the sector. But I hear on that one. Anyone else have any they want to, no one warned me about this moment? Okay, I'll go over to the next one. I have one around positivity. And so, in the forest sector, I'm sure in fire too, there's a lot of public opposition or public opinion on what you might be doing or not doing. And so someone's wondering if you have any advice in staying positive in the face of, challenges or trying to educate, and how do you engage with the public when you might have some of this like public negativity towards you? Anybody want to share with that? Oh, I see Catherine, go for it.
Yeah, this is my jam. I feel like in at Inside Education we talk about issues all the time. Really, it's about critical thinking, and issues-based education is the type of work I do. So this question really resonates, and um, yeah, my thoughts on how to stay positive in those moments is a, stick to the science, stick to the facts, start there. It's really easy to go down, yeah, opinion spirals, and people tend to stick with those folks that share similar opinions. So when you're thinking about it or about to go into maybe a polarizing space, that stick to the facts, and then find the good news stories that do exist. There's tons out there of people doing good work, of good things happening on the landscape. So anytime you have some of those things that aren't so good, the aren't so good things are happening too. But make sure to balance that with the good, positive work that's out there as well. Tell stories of technology and innovation and science.
Yeah, definitely. I think from my personal opinion, I found that asking questions to understand where that bias might be coming from can be really revealing because then you're able to use those facts and information to build a bit more knowledge versus coming at it from like an adversarial perspective. Donna?
I live in a world of concerned citizens who have a lot of opinions on everything we do. And again, I believe in what we do, and I don't make any decisions or any moves without thinking every part through. So when the concerned citizen is generally upset about something, um, I know what we're doing is in the best interest of either our property, our forests, or the public. I know that, and I cling to that. Sometimes, it can take a couple of days to get back to being positive, but when you're surrounded by a team who also believes in the same thing, makes it a lot easier to, at the end of the day, just kind of have a debrief and say things you're not allowed to say in public.
Great advice. I have a question here. I think that might be directed at Sophia. And so, someone mentions that they're finishing a degree in geography and looking to get into a career in emergency management. And so, kind of related-ish to your field or in your field. I'm curious if you have any recommendations how they might break into the industry.
I think a good way would, if you like, if the person does have like a summer off, like wildfire is a really big sector of emergency management, just because like when it comes to like community evacuations or like park closures, you are working with a bunch of different sectors within like towns or cities. Like when I was working in Fort Smith, I was also on the volunteer fire department. So on my days off, I was working like helping clear the community and just like responding to like EMS and ambulance calls. So that would be a good way, as well as like within parks, like there's a lot of like upper office jobs as well. So like there's like jobs as like fire techs and things like that, which are big parts of like emergency management because you're not out. Well, you can be in the field, but it's more of like an office job and dealing with like all the other sectors of like parks, like within like the fire office as well as like the rescon and a bunch of other things like that. So that would be my recommendation.
Awesome. Thanks for that. I love that you kind of mentioned too that there could be volunteer opportunities that people might think it always has to start with a job, but there could be some entry factors or at least building skills and experience doing that. I'm curious, and this is a question for everybody. Is there one thing you wish you learned that you didn't? And you could still be planning to, but maybe it's something that you didn't learn that you wish you did. I'll share mine while you guys think of yours. For me, I often talk about business. So for me, in some of those, when I think about undergrad, I'm like, I wish I would have taken a course where I understood business. So whether it's like developing budgets, reading financials, how to put proposals together, something where you're dealing a bit more with the financial side. That's not a skill that I was kind of recommended to explore. And much to Kathryn's point, in some of the work we do now, it's a big part of my work now. And so I've built those skills, but I wish I had learned it a bit more formally early on.
I'll build on this a little bit because I think, yeah, exactly. I would have said the same thing. But I had an interesting experience because when I came into the executive director role, there was a third party recruiting firm that was hired to by our board of directors. And as I said, I had been with the organization for 20 years, and I really didn't search for other opportunities during that time. So from when I was 23 to when I was in my 40s, that was literally my first interview. And I had to, like, I don't know, learn interview skills. And I can't, like, I was so nervous during that interview. I knew the organization inside out, I knew all of the working pieces. But yeah, I wish I would have maybe not learned, but honed those interview skills a little bit better throughout my career. So I would encourage anybody, like, always take the interview just so you can practice, even if, yeah, it might not be, you'll learn something during that interview process.
Yeah, great advice.
I can jump in and I'm listening to you guys. I can consider a business degree or like an admin degree. Because I'm also thinking like where can I grow? So that's cool. And I'm listening. But another piece for me is politics.
Mm.
Forestry is so political, and I'm sometimes in rooms where I'm like, damn, like, who is this and why are they here and why does everyone care? Or like, what's going on? Like, and as a young person, I'm like, the only politics I'm really looking at is, I don't know, TikTok. So I'm now in Indigenous policy school, so I am learning about like policy writing, rules, laws, that kind of stuff. But like, you kind of have to go out of your way to learn that stuff. And even now, it's kind of very high level, even though I've been in the school for like a couple months and I'm still like, I'm gonna have to do extra work.
That's a good example of fake it till you make it. Anyone else want to add in things they wish they had learned?
I think I can add to this, and I don't know if it's a skill like that can be taught or something we need to just learn ourselves, but the art of slowing down. Just because wildfire is super demanding, and there is moments during the season where you can't just be like, all right, I need 2 weeks. I gotta go do stuff. But just so it's just like taking care of yourself and realizing like maybe if you just need to go for a walk after work or just like certain things like that and just taking care of yourself and like realizing it's okay to take time if you need time for yourself. But
And
that's,
stretch. Don't forget
yeah,
to stretch.
absolutely.
Slow down and stretch. Awesome. If
Yeah.
there's one thing you took away, no. Awesome. Okay, so we're wrapping up. We have a few more minutes. I'm curious if anyone had any sparking moments that they want to share or some thoughts, and I'll pause for a second to see if anyone wants to leave some lasting thoughts for folks.
I'm gonna give what I was given when I was young, a long, long time ago. Uh, learn learn three or four things. Learn them really, really well when you're young. And when the conversation with other professionals is rolling around to something different, bring it back to what you do know. So you don't enter into speaking on things you don't actually know about, yet you still look like you know something. And I don't know if I ever ever actually did that, but it made sense. Um, that's all I got.
Nice. So become an expert in a few things. Make it a good part of your potential focus conversation. But I think to Donna's point too, don't worry about having to feel like you need to know everything. I think there's power in network, and I do think that's a big part of what Women in Wood is about. You might not know everything, but you might know someone who knows that thing. And so building networks, building connections, whether that's through mentorship or whether that's through groups like Women in Wood, is really essential for building that long-term career and that network that will be your net worth in the future. And so thank you to the speakers today. I really appreciate your insights and your feedback and your comments for everybody. I know we had a bunch of questions that I couldn't even get to. I had to pick and choose. And so I appreciate everyone who was able to contribute to the Q&A as well. Hopefully you got some insights. I feel like you can find some of these ladies, whether it's on LinkedIn or social media or find their emails. Feel free to reach out if you want to connect with them directly. Just a reminder, next week is our last webinar of the series, and Lacey will be hosting that one along with some amazing speakers, again, with a diversity of experiences. And so check out the website to register. If you're not already on Facebook, it is open women only or those who identify as women, so feel free to join that. There's some really interesting discussions that are happening right now. I was looking at it last night, and just a reminder of why the group is so important, because some of these conversations are very vulnerable and open, which is great. We also have Instagram, and so feel free to check us out on there. But we appreciate your time. We hope that you have a great afternoon, and thank you for tuning in today. Thank you, ladies.